Hi everybody, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Eric, I'm the account manager at Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand. We're part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges by the creative use of technology. For those of you that haven't attended a webinar session with us before, Connecting Up in TechSoup New Zealand facilitate training of online webinars, workshops, boot camps, and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all digital areas, and you can check out more on the training section on our websites. Today, I'm really excited to welcome you to join today's webinar, which is Zero Trust and its importance in securing data, networks, devices, workloads, and people, which is being presented by John Lucis, the Regional Manager for ESET for MSPs. John's been part of the ESET family since 2009, assisting to expand global distribution and drive product development growth in Asia and Australia. From 2021, John's been heading up ESET's MSP program as it continues to be a major focus for ESET in Australia. Now, before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping from myself. All the lines are going to be muted, so if you've got any technical issues at all, just type that into the questions box and I'll do my best to help troubleshoot that with you during the webinar. If you've got any questions during the session, please also type that into the questions box and we'll be tackling those at the end of the session. Do remember, there are no silly questions. We do love it when it's an interactive session, so don't be shy. Your comments and your questions won't appear to the entire group. They'll just appear to me and I'll read them out through to John at the end of the webinar. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask, chuck it in the questions box and we'll get to it at the end. Now, just a couple of final things here. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and if you've got a few other programs open, just close those down if you can, because that can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video streaming that you get, and we want you to have the best experience that you can today. Like most of our webinars, this one's also being recorded, so I'll be sending through a link to the recording tomorrow morning along with a copy of the slide deck for you to have a look at if you want to check that out later. Finally, there's going to be a short survey at the end of the webinar, and we'd really appreciate it if you could spare a minute or two to fill that out at the end, because your feedback is really important to us. Otherwise, that's about it for me, so I'll hand it over to John now. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. I do appreciate it. And thank you to Connecting Up and Micro for organizing this event. And more importantly, thank you for attending this webinar on building trust through Zero Trust, proudly brought to you by ESET. As Eric mentioned, my name is John. I'm the regional or the MSP segment manager for ESET. I've been in endpoint security for almost 20 years, working with companies from CA, VET, consultancy across the board around endpoint, and been collaborating with ESET for more than 10 years. Today's topic is based around Zero Trust. It is becoming the security model of choice, but others actually think it might be cybersecurity's latest buzzwords. Firstly, we'll briefly cover who ESET is and what makes us different, and then we'll proceed down the Zero Trust journey. Hopefully we can clear up what is Zero Trust, and we'll also cover the relationship between ESET and Zero Trust and how you can integrate these particular concepts. And then I will leave you with an action plan to start your journey down Zero Trust. In regards to ESET, ESET was founded by two uni students over 30 years ago. They discovered a particular malware and then decided to set up a company. The company is now over 30 years old. It's grown to approximately 2,000 employees with 23 offices worldwide. ESET is the largest cybersecurity company out of the EU. The major difference is from other vendors, we are still a privately held and financially independent company. We're more of a research arm that has developed a product. 1/3 of our team is in research and development, and 70% of our profits go back into R&D to create the best-in-class security solutions. I've worked with ESET from San Diego to Singapore and now into Australia. When I started in 2009, there were shy of about 700 staff with approximately 6 offices. Now we've grown to over 2,000 with 24 offices. Most of these, 95% of our the way that we go to market is through partners. So these offices are to expand the brand and provide more support and a sales mechanism to support our partners. It is important to note we have approximately 650 million users globally. If you include our Google Chrome that uses our engine to protect customers, it's over 1 billion users. ESET basically has conquered the consumer, SOHO, and SMB market. Our next frontier is to conquer the SME, enterprise, and MSP segments. Working in the consumer and SOHO and SMB market, it is important for our product to be almost a plug-and-play solution, but more importantly, to reduce the overall cost of the solution. So we have focused at zero false positives for a long period of time, as we understand any false positive might take up to 30 minutes to 3 hours to investigate, which basically is an additional cost to your business. In the last 2 to 3 years, ESET has developed or matured its solutions and services to cater for the SME and enterprise product, but we always will remain true to our roots to have a light footprint, false positives, and intuitive to use. We have won multiple and numerous awards throughout the years. Even in Australia, we have the recommended choice for the last 4 years. We don't really hide anything. Everything is available online in regards to our products, especially when we compare to third parties. It is important to note that ESET is seen as a leader or a top player in endpoint security by multiple third-party research and consulting companies such as Forrester and Gartner. This may explain why Google chose ESET after conducting independent testing to use our engine as the official cleaner for Google Chrome, and also to protect users from the Google Play Store. These are some of the key reasons why ESET is the #1 cybersecurity company in the EU. Now to the topic of today, which is zero trust. Zero trust is a very popular term, and often the meaning of zero trust is not consistent across the cybersecurity community. So let's talk about what zero trust is. For a generation or more, cybersecurity was a castle and moat approach. We put most of our controls and security on the perimeter, like you may see in this castle here. You can only build these walls so high and so thick before some innovation makes it obsolete. Castles like these may have been great when facing an army limited to archers, but as the technology advanced, for example, with the introduction of cannons, you could launch projectiles over these walls, thus making these walls irrelevant. The perimeter has been coming down in cybersecurity for many years, especially as cloud became much more popular for businesses. So putting most of your security resource on the perimeter is no longer a very appropriate strategy. Things got a little bit crazy in 2020, and in March and April 2020, a lot of businesses left their offices and companies started sending their workers home. If the perimeter wasn't dead in 2009, we are basically all outside the perimeter now. Therefore, in the wake of the pandemic, IT operations had to change completely. As everybody must have experienced, there was a rapid increase in acceleration of moving applications and data to cloud to enable remote workforces. Now, organizations are allowing their employees to work from home and office. Managing the security of a remote workforce, network, and IT resources is getting more complicated. Business and personal devices of employees are interconnected between protected and unprotected networks while they access the organization's IT resources. This has led to an increase in security vulnerabilities. So how do we now secure those things? At ESET, we feel strongly that zero trust is important for modern IT infrastructure and should be the focus for many organizations. Let's talk about some principles of zero trust. The reality is we can't stop all breaches, but we can reduce the impact. This is very important. Just to stress again, the mindset is that we won't be able to stop all breaches, but we can focus on reducing the impact of any breach that actually occurs. At a basic level, zero trust is a mindset of never trust, always verify, and there are 3 underlying principles to zero trust. The first principle is all networks should be treated as untrusted. In the past, we treated airport Wi-Fi and hotel Wi-Fi as untrusted networks. Many of us are still working from home, and our home network should be considered untrusted. Our kids are using tablets, and we are bringing more IoT devices like smart speakers and cameras. We may have many risky devices on our home networks, and we also have kids or a partner that may jump on a corporate-owned system as we leave it unlocked or unattended. So our home network should be untrusted. And absolutely, even our on-premises and company networks should be considered untrusted as well. Put simply, we should not have faith in any activity on our network to be legitimate. gone on the days of being able to trust everything inside our network. Our second principle is less privilege must be enforced. Basically, you must have a need to know to access some data or business process. We do this because all of our networks are trusted. We should never grant access to sensitive data or critical business processes just because that person is on the on-prem network at the office. We cannot guarantee their account is under their control or that person is an actual inside threat. Least privilege, always enforce enough access to your people, the staff or people that can actually get the job done. It's very important to regularly audit access and, more importantly, remove access when no longer required. Principle number 3 is, as we see in the news every day, there's quite a few new breaches actually occurring. We need to maintain and assume a breach mentality. So we always will remain vigilant and continue to improve our security defenses and continue to use zero trust strategies. This will allow our mindset to become more resilient. Inevitable, we are going to get breached. Third-party research has shown that 69% of businesses were breached in the last 12 months, and most likely the 31% are not actually aware that they have been breached. There are still many companies that lack the controls and visibility to know if they have been breached at all. The zero trust concept was created back in 2010. It was a network-centric approach of untrusted and actually trusted networks. It then moved to all networks as untrusted. 12 years later, it has now evolved to encompass the entire ecosystem. The zero trust model builds security around each of the key resources and entities of an organization, which are data, networks, devices, workloads, and people. At the center of the zero trust framework is data. It is what we are trying to actually protect. People can access data, devices can store data, data flows over networks, and workloads process data. These are the 4 components that are connected to data. In a defense in-depth model, we have layered in controls throughout our environment, but there was no integration of security controls. And frankly, most of the controls were focused on the perimeter. We have obtained endpoint control over the years. EDR is big or getting bigger, but we lack a lot of automation, orchestration, visibility, and analytics that integrates all those different control points together. This is the zero trust framework across the business and can touch our sensitive data or critical business processes. A lot of people think that it's going to require a huge investment to implement zero trust framework. The truth is quite far from that. All of us have some tools in place we could actually use to implement zero trust strategies. Looking at the people side, tools have role-based access controls for over a generation. Two-factor or multi-factor authentication is relatively common. We should definitely be using it with any type of administrative account or critical business process. Account segmentation is a big one. If you have admin for a particular system, you should use different credentials than what you actually use for your primary accounts. So if there is a compromise in the primary account, it doesn't take down your entire network or business processes. Thus, we can limit the actual damage. Looking at the workloads, most providers have built-in security controls. We need to take advantage of those. You need to use those configurations and enforce good policies to reduce access. On devices, access management is something that CIOs have been doing and continue to do. If you are not aware of an asset, it is very hard to reduce the risk from it. Endpoint security is very standard now. Use those controls like host-based firewalls and turn them on. You shouldn't have to run any server or application on a user endpoint. This should be locked down and not be able to be used for lateral movement, which reduces the risk for ransomware. On the network side, micro-segmentation is what we're trying to get to. Use your network devices, routers, switches, and so forth with your access control list to limit who and what can talk to with other parts of the network. And lastly, we are trying to protect data and business processes. When you have identified sensitive business data, you want to encrypt it at rest and also in transit. And then it is a security orchestration, automation, and security analytics that bring all these together and creates a better situational awareness in the SOC as to what is happening for our environment. As discussed, Zero Trust advocates that organizations should operate with the assumption that any source, internal or external, can be a potential attack vector. As our business continue with a hybrid working arrangement for the foreseeable future, the traditional IT parameter security approach is no longer efficient in offering protection against the open net and its risks. It's time for companies to reevaluate their IT security and evaluate it using a Zero Trust approach. So how does ESET fit into Zero Trust approach? First, organizations need to determine what stage they are right now and how to advance to a more secured Zero Trust model. ESET has developed its own security maturity model to assist its partners and clients on their journey to Zero Trust readiness. The first two levels, low level and basic protection, are where most businesses are today with endpoint and mail server protection. To start the journey to Zero Trust readiness, businesses should aim to achieve level 1 and above. Level 1 secure defense is making sure there is multi-secured endpoint solution in place. Level 2 is protective inspection that allows to detect anomalies or threats in real time. Level 3 is anticipatory intelligence using threat intelligence services via Security Operations Center, or referred to as a SOC. Against new norms of hybrid working, IT managers are required to meet constant needs of protecting employees' devices, organizational data, and the network. This imposes immense challenges for organizations of all sizes. To meet these requirements, a multi-secured endpoint solution is needed. This is where the following ESET solutions can come in to support your level 1 Zero Trust readiness. So the first one is endpoint security. ESET Endpoint Security is an award-winning endpoint security solution that protects all endpoints and services across different operating systems using multi-layer technology. We are one of the very few companies that actually detects threats on pre, at, post-execution that actually reduce false positives. Most companies either focus at, which creates a lot of false positives, or pre and at. The next part is access management. ESET Secure Authentication provides you with secure access management via multi-factor authentication to ensure that all access to your company's systems and networks are secure. Data security, ESET full disk encryption and endpoint encryption supports your organizations to meet GDPR and compliance requirements in data security with certified encryption to ensure that your organization data does not fall into the wrong hands. And lastly, cloud sandboxing. ESET Live Guard Advanced ensures that your organization keeps its network free from all kinds of emerging threats with the help of cloud sandboxing. Organizations today need to be fully informed about what is actually occurring on the network in order to immediately identify attacks from the outside, misconduct by employees, and unwanted applications. To provide a comprehensive overview of an organization's internal network, an EDR solution is needed to reach level 2 in the security maturity model. ESET Inspect is our EDR solution for the prevention, detection, and resolution of security incidents in your organization. This enables the company network to be secure in the long term and allows for any dangers to be recognized in real time. ESET Inspect offers forensic insights into current and as well as previous incidents, helping to prevent future attacks. A reliable database with extremely low false positive rate is of enormous importance for the operator of a security operations center. A picture-perfect situation can only be achieved by combining all these findings. To provide these findings, threat intelligence services are needed. ESET delivers global threat intelligence in real time, protecting online presence, certificates, and applications, thus ultimately protecting your reputation. ESET Threat Intelligence extends the protection level of your company network to include knowledge from the World Wide Web, which informs you of targeted attacks, APTs, zero-day threats, and botnets. In this way, ESET security solutions support IT managers in recognizing threats to the company network at an early stage. Under our solution ecosystem, ESET has in total 13 products that fall under the adaptive security architecture, which is divided in 4 categories to prevent, detect, response, and predict. To support in building up your cybersecurity to a zero trust framework, we recommend the following basic ESET solutions. Now, these solutions are available as either as an annual subscription model or as a monthly subscription model, and also available under the MSP program, available for Connecting Up and Microbe. The first line is basically to prevent attacks, so no actual losses experienced, which is covered by endpoint security, encryption, and two-factor authentication. Next is to detect attacks when they're not actually prevented, and followed up by rapid response, so companies can quickly address incidents and minimize loss. This is covered by security management, cloud sandboxing, which might be sometimes referred to as light EDR, and endpoint detection and response, which is referred to as EDR. And lastly, we have predict, which is attacks in order to anticipate the most likely threats, covered by advanced early warning systems, compromise of several cloud-based technology, and security as a service. This includes real-time data feed that makes it easy to integrate with existing SIEM tools. Now, it is important, although we've covered under Zero Trust, my one biggest recommendation is to start looking at EDR component in relation to your environment, but also more importantly, look at cyber security insurance. Lastly, before I wrap up, I just wanted to leave you with an action plan from what we've actually discussed today. So the first thing that you want to do when getting started on your zero trust journey, either for yourself or for your customers, is to actually get executive buy-in. It is important to illustrate why zero trust strategies make sense. Then identify critical assets. You cannot identify everything, so you must actually prioritize. It is those critical assets, data, and processes which should be at the center of your zero trust framework. Then identity management and governance is very important. Remove access to things that are no longer needed. Make sure accounts are being deprovisioned when people leave the company or the organization, and reduce privileges as much as possible. Especially for admin's account, implement multi-factor authentication and make sure that they have their own exclusive passwords that are not linked to any primary account. And then to do some security and maturity assessment of your security operations center. Help to make it better, help your team to understand the value of zero trust. This will basically reduce the signal to noise ratio and it will assist in investigations that need to be actually dealt with. Look, I will leave you with our brand ambassador, which is Chris Hadfield, to navigate through your journey through zero trust. Chris Hadfield is an astronaut engineer, pilot, and the first Canadian to walk in space. He has flown 2 space shuttle missions and served as a commander. With ESET, you are in good hands. Thank you for staying with me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and you can always reach out to either Eric or Microbe or ESET if you have any questions around zero trust or endpoint security or EDR.
Thank you very much, John. That was fantastic. Now, we've got one question in at the moment, and obviously we've got plenty of time here for questions. So if anyone has got any questions about what we've just looked at or more about zero trust in general, please don't hesitate. Go ahead and type those in the chat. We've got enough time to get to them, so yeah, don't worry about that. But the question we have got here, John, relates to something that you just touched on there, which was, I think, around the cybersecurity insurance. So we've been asked a couple pointed question here, which is on cybersecurity insurance for organizations that are looking to start investigating that Are there anybody in particular or any places or companies in particular they should be looking at to try and procure that from? And B, is there anything in general, like tips, pointers that they should be looking for in terms of what cybersecurity insurance should cover for them?
That is a very good question. I'm not an expert in cybersecurity insurance, so I can only give you my opinion, but please don't take it as gospel, as I'm not in that particular area. It is an evolving area, especially in two fronts around insurance and also law. I've only met in my existence three solicitors in cybersecurity, which is only a few. Insurance is evolving over the last 5 years. Most of recognized insurance companies provide cyber insurance guidelines in regards to what you require to take it on board. We do have, after this meeting, I can provide contact for at least 2 companies that do deal with smaller clients as a reference point, and that can also be obtained by Microbe as well, and I can provide those details after this call. But all major insurance companies do provide cyber insurance.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, John. I'll see if we can get up those details from you later, and then
Sure.
yeah, send them through to the right person. So, all right.
But shop around. That's all I can
Yes.
suggest.
Yep, good plan as always. Excellent. All right, well, things are still being a little bit quiet in the questions section here. Again, I know we've got plenty of time here, but if no one has got any questions, we can obviously go ahead and finish a little bit early and give everyone a little bit more of their day back. So while I wait for a couple minutes longer, I'll just do a bit of a quick outro here again. As always, thanks, John. Thank you very much for presenting. It was great to see you and great to see all the content again as usual. Again, just to reiterate for everyone that has sat through the webinar here, this webinar was recorded, so you will be able to go back and watch anything if you need to do that down the track. And as usual, you'll be able to get a copy of the slide deck as well. So I'll be sending an email out tomorrow morning that'll have a copy of the slide deck on it and a link to the Connecting Up or TechSoup New Zealand website for you to go ahead and view the recording. Otherwise, that is about it. Again, there is going to be a short survey feedback at the end once I close the webinar down. So if you could spare a minute or two to fill that out, your feedback is, of course, really important to us. That just helps us better develop the webinar program. I'm just having a bit of a quick look here. It doesn't look like we've got any questions that's come through, so I think we're good to wrap up now. John, was there anything else you wanted to add at the end here?
I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, and if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to ESET, Connecting Up, or Microbe. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, John. Well, look, thank you again, everyone, for attending and for your time today. We hope to see you at another session in the future. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.